Perfect. So welcome and thank you for coming tonight. And we're just going to do a little overview of understanding ADD and ADHD. And my name is Sue Kelly, and I'm a behavior therapist with the Ron Joyce. And I've been working with children and families in our community for a little over 40 years now.
And I'm Michelle McVitie, and I'm a child life specialist, and I have been working with children for over 20 years. So welcome. Just a reminder that this session is for education only, to keep information confidential and ensure that this is a safe place. And if you're needing support, the coastline is there for future if you're needing something. If you're in crisis, if your child is getting aggressive, you can always call the coastline. And Contact Hamilton is the place in Hamilton if you're looking for service or you're looking for courses like ours that you can call, and it's self-referral. So I found this little meme. Parents of children with ADHD have to deal with so much more than a typical parent. I feel as if we use every ounce of our energy to help our children. We're constantly researching therapies, medication, fidget tools, study aids, and so on. We're also constantly advocating for our children and defending them. So this is a parent and their experience. It may be your experience as well, and Sue and I are here to support you through that journey, because children, don't come with a manual, and when they have ADHD, we do have to work harder. They need more support, but in the end, we're giving them the tools that they need to succeed. We just need more patience, and more understanding of where their struggles are.
So ADHD it's just a term, and it refers to attention deficit hyperactivity, um, the disorder sort of as a whole, but it also includes the inattention piece as well. So it's a condition that makes it difficult for them to pay attention as well as to control their behavior. And they can have one component of this or they can have the inattention, or they can have the behavioral component, or they can have both. So they've combined it together. They used to separate that in the past. So wanted to sort of make that clear so that people were sort of understanding that they may not actually hear that ADD term anymore. The ADHD term sort of encompasses all of that now.
So ADHD is not laziness or a lack of motivation. It's not a behavior problem, and not something that the child chooses, and something to go over with your kids as well. A lot of times they feel like, what's going on with me? What's the matter? Why can't I be like my sister? Why do I always get in trouble in class? And they do feel bad, and helping them understand that this is not something that is their fault, that, brain is under construction until 25, and then when we have ADHD on top of that, we have to work a little harder, and our brain is doing things a little bit different. So we have to work a little harder. It doesn't mean that we can't succeed. It just means that we need more tools, and we need to understand where the child is coming from. So are we going to play the video?
I don't have the video loaded on here, but I will try to get it later in the presentation. I'll let you know.
Perfect.
So onset typically is before age 7. And typically what you may see are things like the inattention, right? So very hard for them to keep focused, lots of hyperactivity, moving around, And the biggest sort of key factor that we see is that impulsivity, right? So lots of, difficulty focusing on things, and there's, they're grabbing, they're moving, they're very quick to respond for things. Um, Not a lot of sort of thinking before acting, right?
Yeah. So that inattention, like Sue was saying, they're having a hard time keeping their mind on the task. They get bored. They're jumping from one task to another, and then they don't finish their tasks, right? So they get really excited about something, and then they move on to the next thing. And they're easily distracted. They don't follow instructions carefully because of all these things, right? So it's not that they're not trying, but the inattention is not helping them out, especially when they're at school. And they usually forget and lose things that they need to complete tasks. So are they bringing back home the math homework? Do they bring the actual textbook? Are they able to follow through and finish the homework? And a lot of times we have to kind of be there right beside them. Is there distractions on top of their brain already being distracted? So lots of things to keep in mind. And then
Yeah, the
hyperactivity.
hyperactivity. They
Yeah.
definitely, this is that sort of Energizer Bunny kind of, Tigger move that we see, right? They're, hard time sitting still, lots of that, moving around, roaming about, lots of that touchy things, squirming in their chairs, fidgeting around, just really hard for them to stay put, right?
Mhm. Some parents that have come to our groups and they have told us that they have ADHD, they say that it's like a motor running, right? That they can do really well. I remember one mom said, if I'm crocheting and counting, I can concentrate on anything. I mean, I can't do that. I have to concentrate. I have to get rid of all the distractions. But for this mom, she said when she's crocheting, she can concentrate, right? So it's just rethinking how do we support these children. And like Sue said, some of them have one component, some of them have both components together. So imagine where they're coming from. So impulsivity is their talking, they're not thinking, they not think about the consequences. They blurt out comments whether they're appropriate or inappropriate. They have a hard time waiting their turn. Their emotions, are where we can see their emotions. They have those temper tantrums and the meltdowns, and they let us know because they have a hard time keeping that to themselves because of the impulsivity.
So this is just a little diagram that kind of gives you sort of a little bit of an indicator, sort of how the impulse control sort of works. So they get that urge, and think about this like being almost like in that candy aisle, like in the checkout, right? And you're checking out, you're buying the groceries, and you see the candy bar, or the kids see the candy bar, and it's like, oh, and it creates that tension, and they really want that Kinder Surprise or whatever it is, and boom, it's trigger time, right? And now they want to act, right? They want it, they're crying, they want to touch it, they want to pick it up, they want to put it in the cart. They're bugging you like, Mom, can I just have this? Can I have one? Can I have two? You said I could. You said I could. If I was good, if I listened, I could have one. And they want you to act. They're pushing that button, right? They want it, they want it, they want it. They get it, they get a little bit of relief, right? Because that was the impulse, was to get it. And it's like, if okay, if I have it, it's like, yeah. And then afterwards, there might be a little bit of guilt because either maybe you gave in to them, or maybe that they bugged, and now maybe I have to pay a price because maybe there's a consequence because I didn't listen. So maybe there's a consequence to that. So think about that from both sides, your side, their side. There's consequences on both sides of the impulse control factor, right? But this is that this is basically how that sort of impulse control, you get that urge to want to buy something, to do something, to react to something. And then if you do it, you get that automatic relief and it feels good, right? It's like, yes, I had that chocolate. I bought that pair of shoes, or I did that certain thing, whether it be a child or an adult. You get that sense of relief, but then there's this sort of a bit of a guilt factor afterwards, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the way you were describing things kind of reminds me of being in the line at Winners, because they have it. They have you there. They've got on both sides all the impulse,
Out
right?
there.
And then you
Both out there
and
for
then
that
it's like,
reason.
do I need another thermal cup? Do I
Oh
need,
my,
this adorable craft? I think I need it and I have to hurry up because it's going to be my turn or people are coming behind me, right? Or social
exactly.
media for us, right? When we're on social
Yes.
media and someone makes a rude comment or says something and we think we need to get on this, we need to say something. And then there's a huge thread of fighting and it's like, let's put a pause on or I respond, yes, but you see
Uh,
even adults that are quick to respond and they don't have that
Creates that
pause
guilt.
button.
Yeah.
Yes, and then it feels good in the moment, and then it's like, oh no, what did I get into, right? So
Uh-oh.
our children, yeah, have less of that impulse control, right? So trying to
And
relate to where they're coming from.
and you may not, your kids, like we can relate to that as adults, that, that sort of that guilt feeling, but your kids, they may not understand what they're actually feeling, that emotion, right? They may not
Mhm,
experience, sort of fully what guilt feels like. But that is actually what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, but their expression of it may come across a little bit differently than how an adult would experience it, right? It's, I know I maybe did something that I shouldn't have done, and their response or their reaction may come across very dismissive, or it may come across as a
mhm,
very different behavioral response, and now you're thinking that they're just, they're just dissing you, right? um,
mhm.
when actually they're maybe sort of recognizing that maybe I shouldn't have done what I did, but I don't know how to correct it.
So ADHD is affected by the environment. It doesn't cause ADHD, but we can fuel the fire a little bit more, right? So thinking about the school environment, the home environment, and a teacher, for example, that is unorganized, that switches up what they're doing in the day. Is there chaos at home that feeds into the difficulties? I mean, some parents have ADHD or poor organization themselves, and that child needs more structure, they need more follow through. But if we're not following through, then no one's following through, because the child's not going to do it. So we have to step up our checklists and when we're checking in with them. And sometimes that parenting style too can affect the child because, like I said, if you're not checking in, if you're not being consistent, that can be hard. Also, some parents do a lot of that hyper parenting or micromanaging because they feel like they really have to be on top of their child to make sure they follow through, to make sure they don't make mistakes, to make sure that they're not being impulsive. And then that can cause some friction between parent and child, and it's exhausting. So it can be really, really tough, right?
So, you know, a lot of times parents ask themselves, why are my kids struggling? And, what is it that's actually going on? Well, I mean, there's so many factors. There're just lots and lots of layers. And executive functioning is a big term. You can certainly look it up. Michelle and I are not going to go into it in great depth here tonight. We do touch on it a little bit more in our Parenting Your ADHD Child. but you can certainly look up executive functioning. You can Google the term. There's lots of information about it. But if you think about executive functioning, almost kind of like it's like your office assistant, if you will. It's the skills that help us to process things and organize things and keep ourselves in check throughout the day. All the checks and balances and remembering things and processing things and keeping ourselves organized and all of that. If a child has deficits with those kinds of skills, that's a factor for them to struggle. If they're, dealing with emotional and social issues, usually kids that have ADHD can be up to 2 years behind with their emotional and social development. So that in itself can be a real problem and hotspot for them when they're in a classroom and expected to be functioning with other peers that are their same age group, and they can't, right? They can't keep up with them. Their conversations, the games, the things that they play, the ways that they interact are much younger than their peer set. So it's awkward, right? It's always awkward. They don't seem to fit in right. They always seem to be sort of like on the outside of things, right? So at school, home, and in extracurricular activities, they're called on all day, every day to kind of regulate their behavior. So there's a lot of pressure on them to feel like they have to be on point, have to perform. I have to sort of fit into the four corners. And it's really tough for them to fit into the four corners because they just don't fit into the four corners. They operate on the peripheral all the time. They're out here, they're touching the world, they're interacting with the world, and that's a beautiful place for them to be. But unfortunately, school is very much a cornered box where it's like you're expected to be a certain way and perform a certain way. And that's a real challenge and a real struggle for children that have ADHD, to have to try to contain and confine themselves all day long and to hold that in. They can have explosions at different times just because they're trying to hold that in all the time.
So you explained it very well, and this is just reiterating what Sue just said, right? Making plans, organization, being flexible, asking for help, waiting to speak until you're called on, making and keeping friends, seeing another person's point of view. When you struggle with executive functions like impulse control, emotional dysregulation, task initiation, those types of things, time management, when you struggle with those things, it's really tough to do well in life. So when we can build up those skills and understand where they're struggling, we have to give more skill, we have to have more patience, more tools, and we're not lowering our expectations, we're just altering them, but understanding where they're coming from and the extra support that they do need. So we're going to play the other video now, just kind of a nice recap of what ADHD looks like.
Get your backpack, Annabelle. Don't forget your homework. Okay, and clean your room. We have company coming tonight. Oh, man. Oh, my homework. Come on, Billy, we've got to get going.
gosh. I was looking for this. Took weeks for me to find this. And there. Awesome.
Come on, Billy, let's go.
Oh yeah.
You have your homework?
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Everybody please take out your homework from last night. I'm going to pass back your quizzes from last week. Nice work, Billy.
Thanks.
Do you have your homework?
No, I think I left it at home. But I did it.
Okay, well, bring it in next class, all right? Before we get started, did anybody have a chance to look up yesterday's question on Washington, D.C.?
Ooh, my mom and dad took me to the Air and Space Museum.
I'm sure that was nice, Billy, but if you know the answer, please wait for me to call on you. Anybody else? Susie.
Washington, D.C. wasn't always our nation's capital. Philadelphia was the capital before that.
That's right. In fact, our nation had two capitals before it. The first one was in New York City, and the second one was in Philadelphia. And then it moved to Washington, D.C., where it's remained for over 200 years. All right, we're going to have a pop quiz. Please take one and pass it back. You'll have 15 minutes to complete the quiz, and please put them on my desk when you're finished. Billy, you only need one pencil.
Okay. Whoa! So cool.
Billy, please take your seat.
Fine. Okay, gotta get this finished.
Okay, everyone, time's up. Pencils down. Please bring your papers up.
But I didn't finish.
It's okay. Bring your paper up anyway.
That poor little guy. I just want to give him a hug.
Absolutely. I know. I always feel so bad for him.
I know. So it gives you a bit of an inside look as to how your child may be struggling, what the teacher might be seeing. I mean, even, you know, with the pencil, it's like, oh, this is kind of fun. Completely oblivious to the fact that the classroom is working on a test. Like, and how many pencils do you need? But it's like, this is fun. Like he's hyper focused on this. And we just think, come on, kid, like, how do you not know this? But hyper focus, that is part of ADHD as well. And then it's like, I can't not get out and take a look at that fire truck going by. Like the other kids didn't move. He had to go to the window, had to, right? And you can tell every time the teacher corrects him, it's like, oh, like here I go again. I did
So
it.
deflated, eh? So deflated.
Yeah, absolutely. And this here, we're not going to play this video, but this is, so it's an article, but within the article is another video. And this is about a boy that gets into hip hop dancing and kind of finds a passion and finds a focus, and it helps with his self-esteem, with putting his energy, all that extra energy, into something positive, finding a community of people that he really fits in with. So, it's a really cool thing to check out later, because I think, we all want to feel included. We all want to feel part of something, and it's just finding the right fit. And sometimes it'll take a little bit longer.
So the first sort of little tip that we have for you is to think about getting organized. Um, just everyday items, right? So try to have things have a place. Because if you can, just imagine, right? Like that, we don't know where the homework is, we don't know where the pens and pencils are, or, like all the different things that they need to have in their day. If they're kind of scattered all over the house, you can see how easily the homework got forgotten, right? And this is how like mitts get forgotten and different things. So try to have a place where there are, they know where things are, right? So whether it's baskets, bins, and you put labels on them, you have a specific place for homework, so that you know that this is where it is, and that, we check. Maybe you have a little check sheet, before you go out the door. Do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? That may be helpful as well when we think about the last item on the list where it says using charts and timers and visuals. I mean, I think that that is pretty much stellar when it comes to, helping, get organized with children that have ADHD. Because, again, you can write things down, and you can, have places to put things, to keep things organized and whatnot, but they really do need those sort of checklists and timers, and to sort of help them to sort of organize their day, and to know like what comes next and what's expected, and because they just can't process the amount of information that's coming in at them. They're going to get distracted. They're going to hear those bells. They're going to see those trucks. They're going to be distracted by the pencil, right? So, trying to have as much organization sort of structured out for them, where they can see that then for themselves, that this is what I need to do, this is what's coming next, will help them to maybe gain some independence and take a little bit of that pressure off of you as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is something also, it's that communication with the school as well, because he's looking, like they're looking at this as homework, right? And the teacher is saying, write down your homework. Well, has the child written down math and didn't write down pages? I know that some schools have actual like, websites and things like that that you can double check, but that might be something that he has to your child has to step up a little bit, or the teacher has to step up a little bit, that we do that extra check before you leave. So this is a lot of work, and something that you do have to coordinate with the school. So tip 2 is working together and being clear with expectations and writing things down. So this visual is just one that we found, if you borrow it, return it. This is a little too vague. It was just cute and it looks nice, but I would be a lot more specific with your children as to what you want done. So work together, be clear with expectations. Do we need house rules? Do we have that checklist of what goes in your bag? Do we have a checklist of what goes in the hockey bag? What do they have to do before they can go on electronics? What are those steps involved? What are the expectations as far as sharing the TV, or when I can have electronics, or can I have electronics during the week? With some children with ADHD, they can't. They cannot handle that. It's like a fight or flight mode when they're doing the video games, and they can't get out of fight mode. So this is something that has to be talked about. Include your children in those decision making things, but what are the expectations? Have them repeat it back to you, and then you have those visuals, so it's not a mystery to say, oh, I didn't know this, right? Anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's good.
And here's a little, trying to write as many things down as possible, right? What specifically, and for some children, they need more specifics, even steps broken down as to, if they have to clean the bathroom, then what does that look like? Take everything off of the counter. What cloth am I using? What cleaning product am I using? And really writing those steps down, or having a picture of what it looks like to be completely ready for school.
I was just laughing because I was thinking, and how much cleaning product am I using?
Yeah, that's true.
Not half the bottle.
That's right.
I've just seen it happen. That's all.
I know. It's like
So,
toothpaste,
there goes
right?
half the bottle of Lysol.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and it's like toothpaste too, right? Like squeeze
You
this in the
didn't
middle and it's all over the place. Yes. And it's kind of fun. Cause and effect. I squeeze this out and look what happens. Yeah, exactly. So these are things that we have to think of ahead of time, knowing that our children lack that impulse control. They're looking for that cause and effect. This is kind of fun, just like the pencil sharpener. And then they kind of get lost in cleaning product or toothpaste, and we haven't gotten anything done.
Tip number 3 is about using rewards. And rewards always bring up lots of conversation about, am I bribing my kids? This is not about bribery. This is about acknowledging the effort that they're exerting to try to, sort of change and shift what they're doing, and to the effort that they're putting forward to try to sort of contain that urge, right? That impulsivity, to be able to sort of follow through with tasks, right? So this is just to help them to sort of stay on track, and to acknowledge that, yeah, this is hard work for you. Do you have to necessarily keep with a reward chart forever? Absolutely not. This is just to sort of help them to be able to see that, once you've got it, you've developed a new habit, and you're good, right? You're golden. You've got it. You've shown that you can do it consistently now on your own, and you can gradually start to remove the reward from it because they have it. And maybe they still need to maybe have a reminder chart or a to-do done kind of a list, just like sometimes we need a to-do list. But they don't necessarily still need to have the reward attached to it. So it's not about bribery, it's about acknowledging that effort, because this is about establishing a new behavior, a new way of doing things to help them to feel like I have some success, right? And encourage that sort of buy-in to want to try, to want to change their behaviors, to want to try to sort of shift things in a positive direction. And who doesn't like rewards?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just that acknowledgement, the effort, focusing on the effort that I am trying, right? Yeah. So as a parent, you want to ask for help, connect with your doctor, work with the school, be your child's advocate. Taking parenting classes can really help. We have a lot that can support you, how to validate your child, parenting your ADHD child, which is 4 sessions. Even positive parenting has a lot of those basic parenting strategies that really do work, helping them with their big emotions, understanding how to go to the school and advocate. I mean, it does take more work, like the first meme said, it does take more work, but yeah, we can do this. It's going to take some time, and education is key for sure.
Lots of resources, lots of information out there. Understood.org is a great spot to check out. AttitudeMag.com. It is an American site, but there is lots of really good information there. Cannot suggest that enough. Kids Points, if you're looking for sort of some of those charts and things to sort of maybe adapt to your situation. Lots of free resources there that you can download and modify for yourself. So that's a great site as well for you to use. You want to talk about any of the other ones there, Michelle?
I think it's just a matter of finding what's going to be good for you.
I agree.
And yeah, resources will be shared for sure, and they'll follow up with an email. But I think it's going through some of these and knowing how you can use these resources, what are going to be best for your child. And yeah, just being consistent with your strategy and asking your child what will be helpful to them, for them, and just trying it. Yeah, we've got books. Books are great. You know, it's finding reliable sources that you trust and that you can resonate with, right?
And yeah, you'll get an email, a follow-up email from your space, and they will send you out the resource list with everything from today. Does anybody have any questions about the presentation? And if you don't have any questions, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And you're welcome to check out our website as well at the hospital and see if there's anything else that might be useful for you to join in with us at a later date. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sue and Michelle. Like Sue shared, resources from today's presentation will be shared, as well as recordings. So you can go back and watch the recordings. There's also lots of other sessions that Sue and Michelle have done over the summer and also in the past year that relate to today's topic. So feel free to take a look at those as well. Thanks everyone for joining. Just clicking the X will get you out of the session. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Haruka.